with the weather. Welcome. Gosh, it's already Thursday, which it happens so fast every week. It's already week 7. We are nearing the end of week 7. So this year is, of course, flying by. And those of you who are young, you have no idea what I'm talking about. You're probably your life is going pretty well. For those of us who are older, it goes by faster and faster and faster every year. So all the fun that we're having. Anyone have any shout outs, any announcements, any gratitude that they want to share before we get started this morning? Pop your hand up if you do, and I will call on you. And while you do that, I want to, those of you who are following along with Place, Jason Baker's wife, Sarah Baker, did pass away from cancer, and we're certainly thinking of them. Jason is such a great guy. He's always coming on to our Texas Power Ups and teaching us about expireds and for sale by owners because he's so good at them. And so he's having a tough time, him and Cassie and Ethan. And I want to shout out Akash and Ciamara. They jumped on their team's power up this week and co-led their team's power up on Tuesday. Just for the next few weeks, we're all jumping in to help them out. And so I want to thank you, Ciamara and Akash, for doing that. Definitely shows leadership and teamwork and humility, and very appreciative of that. So if anybody else has it on their heart that they want to help out with one of their power-ups, just let me know. They'll be needing some help for the next few weeks as things have had some changes out there in Montana for them. Any other shout-outs, announcements? Jaime, I'm looking at you. Wow, Jaime, you got a beard going. I don't think I've seen.
It's day to day. I don't know how long it's going to stay, but
Okay. All right.
I want to give a shout out to 2 people on the team. Kevin over there in College Station, constantly grinding away, and he's over the last almost 2 years since he's been on the team, he's been the most consistent lead generator. Kind of reminds me of a guy named Akash from when he started, and Kevin, I'm proud of you. And he's the most consistent lead generator, but he's also the most cautious to ever take some time off because it's always on top of his mind. Like, he doesn't want to lose momentum, but that's why we work. The next person, so Kevin, I'm proud of you, buddy. Brian Williams, who brought Kevin onto the team. So yeah, I'm pretty sure his rev share is going to be great. And then Brian, came in, he took a little hiatus, and when he came back in, he had pretty much jump start, and he's been working round the clock. He actually took a night job to, get some steady income going for him and his daughter. And he gets off work, he works 11 to 7, comes straight into the office, and then he just he's going on 2 hours of sleep, 5 days a week. And the reason I want to shout him out is that, I think he has 6 listings right now. He has a few pendings, and he's also helping out other team members. I know Joe Madrid, Akash, they've all heard from Brian with some referrals. So he's not on the call, he's probably sleeping. And I just wanted to let him know that I'm proud of him and that he is just absolutely being very gritty right now. So good job, Brian.
Love that. Love that. That's awesome, you guys. Yeah, it takes a lot to get this business going, doesn't it? It takes a lot to maintain it going. And those of you who plug in, I know Brian's going to listen to the recording. Brian, great job. And Kevin, awesome. Speaking of maintaining our business, last week we had a really good conversation. Hey, Brittany, good morning. You all know Brittany by now. We had a great conversation with Brittany last week regarding, ultimately, I think Lindsay said it the best. She was in chat and she said, we don't have enough conversations about having conversations. And we had conversations around having conversations. And it was really, we had 4 different parts that we were thinking about talking about. Curiosity around lead generation, curiosity around buyer consultations. We got to those, we nailed that. And then curiosity around seller consultations. and seller appointments and curiosity around negotiation. We didn't get to really dive into that part because we had a lot of conversation around it. So this morning, thanks again for popping in, and for our other guests who made the space, because it just made way better sense to just have it back to back. Super grateful. And then those of you who are going to the Keller Williams convention next week, Brittany, will you be there?
I will.
Okay, so if you want to go to any events that Brittany will be at, or if you just want to say hi, she will also be there. So I know some people enjoy going to those conventions. They have gone up in price drastically over the years, and so completely understand if you're watching it online instead with your teams or with your brokerages. But if you happen to be there, Brittany will also be there. Okay, Britt, we talked about lead generation. We talked about buyer consults. Where do you want to start on seller consultations? Start wherever you want.
I'm gonna dive back in and assume anybody that watches this watched the first one beforehand. So we've already talked about being curious. And when you go on a seller consultation, you've got to come into the room more curious about them than you are about telling them all the things that you do to sell their house. So when you walk into somebody's house, if you want them to feel good when you leave, or you want them to sign, like that would be ultimately, like if it's a sellable listing and it's a really good price, we really want them to sign. But at minimum, we want them to feel good when we're walking out the door. We do that by listening. Listening. Well, it's hard to listen if you don't ask questions. And so with that, I got a couple of examples. We were talking through examples on the buyer consult when we wrapped up, and I've got to close a tab that's dinging at me. I'm so sorry. So a couple of things that you guys are asking, you might have a great pre-qualification script. I think I have one of the best that was written by one of my mentors, Diana Kokoska, and I got to work with her side by side for 6 years. So she helped me add some tweaks to it. I think I have like the best one in the world. It's probably not the best, but that's just what I think. But it still leaves room for improvement, right? And some of the questions that you guys are asking, this is your chance to build rapport, because if you remember from the first call, building rapport isn't me too's. It's listening. It's pacing yourself with the person. It's confirming that you heard what they said and that you understand it, because hearing it, being able to regurgitate it is one form of listening, but truly comprehending what it is and why it's important is a whole different level of understanding. And that's how you tell people that they're important and they're heard and their needs are important. So some of the questions that you guys are asking, and you think they're good questions because they're good, they're just not great, is like, what do you want to sell your house for? Okay, so what do you hope to net? Where will you be moving to? You might even ask them if they're going to pay cash or get a mortgage or whatever the questions are. Many of these questions are single word answers or very, very short, closed-ended questions. Now, if you are asking those, you're already leaps and bounds ahead of the people that are not asking any questions and they're just going to the listing appointment. So you're doing good. I want to get you to great, right? So these are some great questions, and I'm giving all of this to Adelina. It is completely handed off to you guys, which means that if there's typos, they're going to be in there, all that fun stuff. But some great questions that you can ask in a listing consultation that will make somebody feel heard, seen, build rapport with you, respect you. All of those things are things like, tell me, when all is said and done and this has gone perfectly for you, tell me, where are you going to be living and what does that look like? And my extroverts in the room, the key that you need to put at the end of every single question is like the word shh. On my team, I say shut up. Ask the question and shut up. But you have to put something in there. And I had an issue with that when I was a MAPS coach as well. I had to actually put myself on mute sometimes after I asked a question because the desire to fill the empty space is so tempting. Those of you who fill the empty space, stop doing that. Write it however you need to. Put a little stop sign in your, like emojis in your scripts. Do something that signals you to hush as soon as you've asked one question. Don't ask two, just ask one, right? All right, so here's some other questions. What originally spurred the idea to move? What's important to you about that? You'll notice I ask that a lot. That's a script in recruiting. That's a script in buyers. That's a script in coaching. That's a script in trying to settle my kids down in the morning if they're tense and they're really upset about something. Okay, I'm missing something. What is important to you about this? Like, what's happening, right? When you think about the sale of your home, can you tell me if speed and convenience is more important to you or if netting the most amount of money is? And you stop and let them answer. Then I'd love to know your thoughts on the topic and why, because I want to serve you the best way I know how, right? Have them expand on it. And the reason you're adding that at the end is you want them to say, well, I think netting the most amount of money is important. Okay, tell me more. Tell me your thoughts about how you came to that conclusion. Tell me why. Have you already spent the money in your head? What'd you spend it on? Right? I'm not afraid to ask those questions and smile at them and be like, just tell me what's going on. Break it down for me. Here's a good one. Have you ever sold a home before? Now that's a closed-ended question, but we're going to hush. And then when they answer, if they say yes, we're going to say, so can you tell me what went well in the process and what could have gone better? Notice I didn't say, what did your last realtor do well or didn't do well? Because I don't want to throw our industry under the bus. So people will like to really, really love to throw their last real estate agent under the bus, and that's not the case. So what went well in the process and what could have gone better? And if they say no, awesome. Can you walk me through your hopes for this process as well as your biggest fears? I'm a big optimist. I really, really want to only discuss the things that are going to go well in this appointment. And I'm going to do this awesome job and I'm going to do this and we're going to do that. And my team does this and blah, 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 blah. But guess what? When people freak out and don't want to solve problems with you in a transaction, it's the answer to that question that will solve that issue. That stalemate of negotiations is understanding what their fears are. Because whatever they're hitting a brick wall and they're like, I'm not moving against this wall. One of their fears is coming true and they're putting up a brick wall. So you've got to get to the bottom of this stuff early on. Now, I did tell you guys last time, when I do comparable sales, I don't do a CMA. My brain isn't wired that way. Luckily, known Ben for a really long time, and he taught me that 555. Go Google it. It's on YouTube. It's also in our place stuff. But I go through the 555. We go through his process. I'm not going to walk you through that whole thing. That's on Google, or YouTube. But when I get done, I only open up the actives. And I say, if you were a buyer right now in today's market looking for a home kind of like yours, but all you had were these options, and I lay out the actives. I said, which home do you think you would choose if you had only these to choose from today? And then I dig deeper on that, right? I 100% agree with you. It's a great house at a great price. Now, what do you believe we need to do, if anything, to your house to make sure that we are competing in condition and market with this house? And I'm going to hold up the one that they chose. Now, you'll occasionally get a smart butt in there, and they'll say, well, that's why I called you here, right? And I go, yeah, I'm aware. And I know how to price your house. I'm making sure that you know how I got there. So just play the game with me. Right? Don't let the tough ones scare you away. Just hit up, don't be rude, but just hit them right back with the same amount of strength. Okay. So another thing that I might add, especially in today's market, everything is not everything, but there are certain price points that are taking a good bit more effort. So I like to ask, so knowing that we need to compete not just in condition, but also in price, where do you think we should be priced to make sure that you're in competition for the next qualified buyer? Now, me asking that question, I'm doing a lot in there. I'm making them think about it. I'm putting them in the buyer's shoes, but I am also making sure that they understand that we're in a competition. Like, that's the way I want you to see this is we're going into this and you are competing for the next qualified buyer who is willing to pay 7% interest and needs to move right now. Okay. So the next one that comes through, they're like a pretty little diamond. We want to get them. Let's make sure that we've got our clients thinking that way too. And I shared the scripts with you. I say stuff like this a lot, especially if I think I'm gonna have to tell them bad news at some point, like maybe their expectations are up here and reality's down here. I'll say, so when I'm doing my job really well, I sometimes say things that my clients don't want to hear, like staging instructions or changes they might need to make to the house, money they need to spend, just in general, things that may not be rosy. So how would you like for me to communicate things like that to you if I know they're not going to feel good in the moment? And my buddy Diana always used to say, if at any time I make you feel uncomfortable, it's because I'm telling you the truth. And you do want a real estate agent who'll tell you the truth, right? I'll never forget some of the scripts from this original Bolds. But those are some of the best. But you've got to affirm it. You've got to tell them, like, my job isn't to make this rosy, but you've got to ask them. Got to ask it as a question, not just tell them, because we're tempted to just say, listen, I'm going to tell you some things sometimes and it's going to make you feel uncomfortable. And you just want to like tell them that. I do. Instead, you tell them, but then ask them, how do you want me to convey this to you? How do you want me to communicate it with you? Super, super important. Now, we've talked about 3 different parts of this: lead generation. We've talked about buyers, we've talked about sellers, but there's a whole nother set of people that you have to talk to get a real estate deal all the way to the closing table. And the main one is other real estate agents. You might parallel a lot of what I'm talking about to like mortgage lenders or title people or anybody else that might help or hinder a transaction. But the absolute strongest relationship you should have besides the one with your client is with the realtor across the table, no matter how crazy you think they are. I get it. We all get a little crazy sometimes, and then some are crazier than others. So when I say I get it, I get it. And your way to the closing table is through great negotiation, great listening skills, great curiosity, not coming from judgment. You guys have all seen those like Instagram reels where they're talking and they're like, if we had to say everything to the other agent that our client actually said on the other end of the phone, and the video, she's like, my buyer said your client must be smoking crack and blah, 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 blah. And like, that's the message that we would relay. We don't relay it like that. Right? We actually have to communicate, first of all, in a professional way, but also when we listen to the other agent and allow them and their version of the story or their side of the transaction to be heard, you're going to get more meeting in the middle just naturally because you're being curious and you're showing up in that way. If you come in combative, ask me how I know, you will hit more combative on the other end of the story, right? On the other end of the transaction. Now, you can still do everything right and still get somebody that's unmanageable, but 80-90% of the time we can handle this with our curiosity. So pay attention to your conversations. Pay attention to what agents will say and not say. Sometimes they'll tell on their clients by accident. Sometimes you can ask questions when you're either about to write an offer or about to receive an offer that technically the other person's not supposed to answer, but they do. And you might find a little motivation in there, right? Whenever somebody calls and says, why did they ask me why my client is selling? I said, because they're doing their job. That's their job, to try to figure out the motivation. Like, they're working with the buyer. They want to figure out how they can make this work, right? At the buyer's terms. And here's the thing, if you'll learn how to ask great questions, you're going to pull more deals together just by that nature, because there's so many of our agents out in the community that do not know how to ask great questions. And by you learning how to ask great questions, you can pull deals together that didn't exist before. And I'm going to give you some real life examples that I've lived through. So showings with no offers. Guys, I had a weird situation. This was a similar market, but maybe 10 years ago or so. And I'm looking at this. I get the listings from a builder. He's got 3 listings, and these other agents had it listed for like a little over a year. And he called me and said, "Hey, I'd like to give you a shot. These are about to expire. Do you think you could do something different?" And I said, "Yep, let me hit it with my marketing. Don't even change the price. Let me see what I can do in the same, in the same time period." And I got 2 out of the 3 under contract within about 45 days. So I was feeling like it was winning. And then the third one just sat and sat. But I was getting showings. Now, can everybody see Valencia on her picture? Now she's not on. Don't come on, Valencia. I want them to see your profile picture. Do you guys see how blue her shirt is? In that picture, that is almost the same color blue that this house was painted. Okay. So now it's quirky town, it's Athens. Like sometimes this stuff works, okay? And sometimes it doesn't. So I call every agent that showed the house from the beginning. And I give them a call and said, "Hey, you showed my listing at blah, blah, blah. Curious, has your buyer made an offer yet somewhere or made a purchase in general?" If they say yes, I go, "Hey, good for them." Just so that I can educate my client on what they're competing with, which house did they choose? And I might ask them for some additional feedback. Like, do you remember anything from the showing? The key is to get them on the phone. Don't do this stuff through your showing time automatic crap. Don't do it through text. Like, get them on the phone. And then if they say no, they haven't made a decision yet, I said, "Okay, so curious on our listing, what would have needed to change in order for your buyer to make an offer?" And this is my script all the time, anytime when somebody says, "I'm getting tons of showings and I don't know what to do. What do I do next?" I said, "You're going to call everybody who showed it and you're going to ask these questions." Because guess what? I called all 11 showings and 10 of them had either already bought a house or there was nothing I could do. But I got to the last one and she said that house was absolutely perfect for them. But they just didn't like that bright blue color and they couldn't see themselves living there. And I said, "Well, hold the phone. He's got a crew down the street building another neighborhood. If he would paint it a different color of their choice, would they buy it?" And she goes, "Well, I can ask them." We had a contract on it that day for full price with repainting. That's all it took. That's all it took. I'll give you another story. I'm on the seller side, and this was actually recently working with one of my friends. And I took the listing, we went under contract, we accepted this contract from the sweet family, and everything seemed to be going well. And I get a phone call from this, like she said, she's a very experienced agent and she had the years and the transactions to prove it. But she said, "Unfortunately, we're going to have to terminate. Something has happened with their lending and blah, 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 a couple of extra things." And I was like, "Okay, let me think. What question should I be asking?" And I said, "Well, before we hang up the phone, let me just ask, if lending wasn't the issue, did they still want the house? Or have they like written it off? And this is just not going to happen right now." And she says, "No, they really want the house. They are heartbroken." Okay, well, would you be willing to get your lender to tell me what the problems were and then let me take those problems to a couple of our preferred lenders and see if they can work something out? We closed 2 weeks later, y'all, with one of my preferred lenders. And if I had just in that conversation either given up or gotten combative or said, "Give me your earnest money," or whatever else, it would have been over at that moment. But in these questions, when you're curious, you will find solutions when there are solutions to be found. So, when you guys are writing multiple offers, you guys already went through that in 2020, you've got to ask questions. What does the seller want? What is their motivation? Is there anything they want to see on this contract? Really, really digging in if as much as you possibly can. But I've also seen some people freeze when they can't get an answer from the listing agent. Sometimes if you can't get an answer, just write your offer and let's figure it out later, right? But when you can, let's try to dig as much as we can. So I'm going to wrap you up with some practical tips for effective questioning. When asking questions, if somebody gives you a yes or a no or a single word answer, you asked a closed-ended question. Like you've got to reword it or expand on it or say, "Tell me more about that." Active listening techniques, if you do those things, you're going to deepen those conversations. So repeating back to them, affirming what they said, and then clarifying, because sometimes you guys think you know what people want because you heard like the surface, but you don't really know what they want. They said they wanted a basement. We talked about this on the last call, and you didn't ask why. So if you start pulling up houses that don't have basements, and they're going to start thinking that you're not listening to them, right? That you're not paying attention. Well, it's because it's got all these square footage up here, and I thought it was about equal. You didn't ask me why I wanted a basement. Ask me why. Tell me, why is that important to you, right? Get comfortable being quiet. That is the hardest part. Some of my agents, if I go on an appointment with them, sometimes I have to put my hand like on their hand or their knee, like to be like, shh. I can feel them squirming, like they can't stand the silence. But gosh, guys, when you ask tough questions, people have to think and they have to articulate themselves. You have to sit there and let them think through it and answer. Sometimes those long, long pauses, that's where your money is. Like that's where they're about to tell you the biggest, deepest secret that they haven't told any other realtor, and you're about to get to the heart of it so that you can help them. You just have to stay quiet long enough for them to answer. So, and that's hard for some of us. Building a habit of curiosity is a daily practice. If you don't already do this, write 5 questions before every appointment. Write 5 questions a day. Then ask yourself, were those open-ended or not? Could I change them to be more open-ended? How could I ask that in a more open-ended way, right? So I know I talk a lot and you guys have such powerful startup that we're getting close to time, but I do want to do one interactive exercise and practice crafting powerful questions. And so I do want some of you to come off of mute or maybe raise your hand. I don't know what the best practice is on here, but I'm going to give you a scenario. All right. The scenario is you have a client that looked at a lot of homes when rates were good, but now they've slowed down. They've seen a lot of homes, but they haven't written an offer on one in a long time. Like you are exhausted, you're out showing houses all the time, and they're not pulling the trigger, even when the house seems perfect. Let's throw as many questions as we can either into chat, or you can raise your hand and ask a question, and we'll just rapid fire and ask some questions so that people can start to hear what that feels like to pose questions to a client that like their fire is running out, right? So who wants to go first? Does anybody raise their hand? How would I see that? Come on, brave people.
So, Mr. Bio, we were looking at all these homes. We're really excited about making a move in 2022 when rates were in the threes. What is causing your hesitancy right now with rates increasing? Is it?
Stop.
Got it.
Right now. Good. Good, Kevin. Who's next?
Brittany, can you say the scenario one more time? I think people
I sure can. You have a client, it's a buyer client. They looked at a lot of homes when rates were good, but they never chose one. Now that rates are higher, they've slowed down drastically. So you're showing them homes all the time, but they have not written an offer in a very long time. It's like you show them the perfect house and then nothing happens. What do you want to ask them?
our Ront team has something good.
Yeah,
Go for
so remind me why we were looking to buy a home in the first place.
Love it. Love it. Who's next?
I would say, so I know you're hesitant with the rates going up, but what happens when the prices go back up as well?
Excellent. Excellent. What's another one?
What's more important to you, finding the right house or finding the right rate?
Excellent. Somebody give me like 2 or 3 more. See if we can squeeze some more in.
I would say, what's it costing you to continue to wait and continue renting? What opportunities are you missing out on by not purchasing your house today?
Excellent.
what are you looking for in your next house that's not in your current house?
Excellent. So guys, the trick is here, all of those questions could work. You just got to ask one. That's the thing, right? You have to ask the questions and dive deeper into that relationship with that person. I mean, sometimes it could be as simple as, hey, I've noticed we've seen a lot of houses that I thought you would like die for, love, like, punch somebody for, go to battle for, and you haven't written an offer. What's going on?
You know what this reminds me of, Brittany, is sometimes we tend to overcomplicate everything in life. But one of the things that we could be doing for our weekly power-ups, with our individual teams, is a scenario like this. Pick a different scenario, and literally it's just, let's get to 20 questions. Because we're sitting here and these are top producers. This isn't like, we're not like just trying out real estate around here, right? And it's not natural because I was thinking about how you started the conversation. You started about like how important listening is. And I don't know where in the process, at least for me, listening meant that we can let clients run wild talking.
No.
Right. Because I'm hearing them. Hearing and listening is completely different, right? And sales listening is completely different. So personally, I really appreciate this. I know what we'll be doing for the next few weeks is just really it's a muscle that needs to be worked on. And it's, I think what we do really well at Place is we learn our presentations, we learn our consultations, we learn our scripts. And that's just the surface level. And you're asking us to go deeper than that, because when you're in that appointment, it's not just the initial script, like surface versus scuba diving, right? And you're teaching us to scuba dive.
Yeah. And I tell all of our agents, now whether they listen or not is a whole different thing. But when you do the Place buyer consult or seller consult or the recruiting opportunities guide, your first goal is to spend the first 20 to 30 minutes asking quality questions. Because otherwise, how do you know which pages you go to? This is not kindergarten. You're not going to flip the book and read it to them like they're a 5-year-old. So if you're going to gear your presentation on what they need, you have to know what's going on in their world. I have one other exercise that I can give you, Adelina, that's really cool is writing a list of 10 like really good personal questions. I think I have a list somewhere. You could partner your agents up together and they do this exercise and they get on the phone with each other every day for like 20, 30 days, just set a habit of it. And they swap back and forth, but person A asks the questions and the other person has to just give a 1-word answer. They can't answer in depth. And then the other person has to keep asking. And what that challenges the person B in the conversation to do is not to keep blathering. Blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you all about the things. And so it's a really, really strong exercise. I'll have to go find it. I typed it up somewhere and I can send it to you.
That's awesome. I love that. Very, very helpful. We will definitely level up. We appreciate you. Those of you who will be in Vegas for the Keller Williams conference, those of you who are with Keller, I know we're a broker agnostic and we have everyone on here, which is awesome. Brittany will be there. A lot of our people will be there and it will be fun. Hopefully, but not too much fun. It is Vegas after all. Come back good, come back legal, all that fun stuff. So we will not see you next week because we will be out of town, but we'll see you the following week. You guys have an awesome rest of your week. Get those contracts on the board, get those clients off the fence. And let's make February the best month that we've had so far this year. We'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.